Johnny Talk Sports with my Week 9 college football predictions. Week 8, another strong week. 8-2 last week. That puts us at 58-22 on the year. That's a good record to have at this point in the year. Right now we're into Week 9, and for some reason, every third week of football season, no matter if it's college or NFL, seems to have the worst record pick-wise. So we're going to try to avoid that in Week 9. First, let's quickly go over my top 4. Not much has changed. We just skip right through this. Alabama's still at 1. Georgia's still at 2. I put Penn State at 3 because their win against Michigan was kind of convincing. Number 4, I put TCU. And with Penn State being number 3, I'm saying kind of because a lot of people think that Michigan's overrated. I mean, I've had some text messages saying that Jim Harbaugh's on the hot seat according to some website, and that Jim Harbaugh might be fired next year because it's about quality instead of quantity. I mean, Bo Pelini fell victim to that a couple years ago, and the person that sent me that text message thinks that Jim Harbaugh will fall victim to that as well. So my top 4 is Alabama, Georgia, Penn State, TCU. My first 2 are Ohio State and Wisconsin. And with a win over Penn State this week, if Ohio State can get that win, they'll move in the top 4. And Wisconsin, they still haven't played anybody yet, but they still have that golden ticket to the Big Ten title game. In fact, with the Penn State and Ohio State, that's going to be one of the games we talk about this week, of course, since it's the game of the week. That game between Penn State and Ohio State, it could determine. In fact, I think it might actually determine who plays Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. So there's a lot on the line in that game. We're going to get that right at the end. So let's move on to the picks. We've got 10 more great games this week. Let's start off with number 11 Oklahoma State versus number 22 West Virginia. Oklahoma State coming off a struggle win against Texas last week, 13-10 in overtime. The offense just didn't look great at all. But the Texas defense is kind of underrated, though. Now they travel to West Virginia. And I think West Virginia gets the win here. I think they pull off the upset. In fact, if I was a betting man, I would say West Virginia is the favorite in this matchup. Because West Virginia may have lost 2 games this year, but those 2 losses this year have been to Virginia Tech and to TCU. And both of those have been 7-point games. In fact, those 2 losses are only by 7 points. So one possession losses. So that's kind of an interesting thing to go into this matchup. I think West Virginia pulls off this upset for that exact reason. They may be a 2-loss team, but they're a pretty good 2-loss team if your 2 losses are TCU and Virginia Tech. Now, next matchup we have number 3 Georgia versus Florida. Huge rivalry game that's going to be played in Jacksonville. Florida needs a win to stay in the SEC East race, and Georgia has to stay in the college football playoff race. Because maybe a loss right here by Georgia, it could eliminate their college football playoff chances completely, unless they win the SEC championship game. But I think Georgia wins this matchup right here. But if Florida's defense keep them in the game and force Georgia's offense to kind of eliminate the running game, I think Florida's got a good chance here because Georgia's kind of living and dying off the running backs. I feel like this is going to be a matchup where Jake Fromm has to make plays. And I think if he does, I think Florida could win this ball game, especially with Florida's defense being really underrated, the most underrated defense in the SEC. I feel like if Florida had an offense, they'd be undefeated right now. But since Florida doesn't have a good offense, I'm picking Georgia. I think Georgia's going to win this matchup. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game, though. I'm going to think Georgia's going to win 23-17. I'm going to say it's low-scoring. And by the way, West Virginia and Oklahoma State, I think it's an offensive battle. I think West Virginia wins 38-31. I think we're going to see a lot of points in the second half of that one. Number 4 TCU versus number 25 Iowa State. Iowa State's pulled off an upset this year already on the road against Oklahoma. Are they bound for another upset? I think they're going to keep it close, although they're going to feed off of that home crowd. If this is a night game, I will pick Iowa State because it's hard to win in Ames, Iowa at night. If Oklahoma State was number 2 and they went on the road to Ames and they lost in double overtime. But I think TCU wins here, although I think it's going to be close for most of the way. I think TCU pulls away toward the end. I'm going to say 34-21. I'm going to say it's a 13-point victory for TCU. And for some reason, a lot of these good games this week are at 2:30 Central Time, which kind of sucks. But number 14 North Carolina State versus number 9 Notre Dame, a 2:30 matchup that I'm really excited about. I mean, both these teams only have one loss on the year, and if one or two things go differently in those respective games they lost, we could be talking about this being a top 10 matchup. We could be talking two undefeated teams going at it. But I'm going to pick Notre Dame. Quarterback Brandon Wimbush is 100% healthy now, especially with Notre Dame coming off a big victory, a big trouncing on USC, 49-14. I think Notre Dame feeds off of that, and I think Notre Dame gets another good win at home. Next, we have UCLA versus number 12 Washington. I'm going to pick Washington this one because ever since I lost to Arizona State, I feel like they're going to start responding. I think this is going to be the game where it determines how the rest of Washington's seasons go. If they win this matchup, I think they could possibly win out. But if not, I feel like it could just be that one season wonder, that one outlier season. But I think Washington wins this matchup here. I think it could be difficult, but I think Washington wins by double digits at the end of the day. I'm going to say 31-21. Number 16, Michigan State versus Northwestern. I'm going to pick Michigan State here. Although Michigan State they've had to grind out the last two wins. But Michigan State only losing one game to Notre Dame. And Michigan State seemed to move the ball really well against Notre Dame. They just had too many turnovers in that ball game. I think Michigan State is much better than what these experts are thinking. They could be a force to be reckoned with against Penn State or Ohio State down the road. Possibly maybe even Big Ten championship contenders, but let's not get too far. But I think Michigan State will win this game. But they need to have a win that's convincing enough. They don't have to struggle. They don't have to grind it out to the end of the game. Or they don't have to just completely grind it out for four quarters. We need that one game where it's a blowout. But not just really a blowout, just a game where they just don't have to win in the last couple of minutes. I think Michigan State gets that here. Because Northwestern just hasn't really been that consistent this year. So I will pick the Spartans. Next, you have Georgia Tech versus number 7 Clemson. And this is the game where Clemson, it's going to dictate the rest of their season. Because if Clemson wins out, they should go to the college football playoff. But if not, if Clemson loses one more time, then they're eliminated from college football playoff contention. So this is going to be the game that dictates the rest of Clemson's season as well. A lot of these games this week are going to dictate the rest of these team seasons. I think Clemson gets the win here. I think it's going to be a struggle win. I think they're going to have a hard time stopping that triple option. Despite Clemson having a pretty stout defense, I do not think that it's going to be an easy one for them. I think they're going to win almost in a way that Miami did, win in the last couple of minutes. I'm going to say 30-24. I'm going to say Clemson's defense gets a huge stop toward the end of the game in that one. I don't see this being a blowout at all. I just feel like Clemson had that come back to reality kind of thing against Syracuse. They've had the bye week to prepare for the triple option. They've had an extra week to prepare for the triple option. And I think that's going to pay off toward the end. 30-24 Clemson win. Texas Tech versus number 10 Oklahoma. I'm going to pick Oklahoma in this one. Although in their last two games ever since they lost to Iowa State, they've had to grind it out in the last couple of minutes as well. Even in the last couple of seconds last week against Kansas State. Only a 42-35 win with a game-winning touchdown in the last 10 seconds. But I think Oklahoma gets a convincing win here. Although they may have to grind it out again, but I think they'll win by double digits in this one. Texas Tech is coming off a bad home loss against Iowa State. And Oklahoma, they know that their college football playoff chances are still right in front of them. I think Oklahoma gets a convincing win in this one. 42-24. I think it's going to be a convincing W. Number 21, USC versus Arizona State. USC coming off a really tough loss, 49-14 against Notre Dame. Now they go on the road to Arizona State. Now Arizona State has already upset Washington this season. Could USC be next on their upset list? I think they're not. I think USC can recover from this one. Although if Sam Darnold turns the ball over, I would lean more towards Arizona State. But I think this is a game where Sam Darnold has to respond in this one. I feel like Sam Darnold should probably stay in college for his senior year next year. But we'll talk about that when we get there. I think USC gets the win here. I think they're going to win in a similar way that they did against Utah. Last couple of seconds, they got to make a key stop toward the end of the game. This could be a game where they have to come from behind as well. I see him having to really come from behind as well, but Sam Darnold has been able to come from behind in a couple of games this season. Already against Western Michigan, Texas. He struggled early against Stanford. In fact, I believe Sam Darnold has turned the ball over in every single game this season. Those turnovers really need to stop if you're USC. But I think USC gets the win here. I think it's going to be really close, though. I'm going to say USC wins 34-27. And finally, the game of the week, number 2 Penn State versus number 6 Ohio State. This is the matchup to watch this week. 3:30 Eastern on Fox. It's a game you don't want to miss. This could not only dictate who plays possibly Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, but it could dictate a playoff spot as well. Because whoever wins this matchup, I would favor over Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game. And that's just me right now. But here's what I see. I see Penn State's coming off an emotional victory against Michigan. Blowout win. Really emotional after the 49-10 loss last year. And they were paying with a 42-13 win. But Ohio State, they got the home crowd. They've got the home advantage. Home field advantage. Extra week to prepare to try to contain Saquon Barkley. In fact, ever since Ohio State's lost to Oklahoma in week 2, they've seemed to respond. They've looked like one of the best 4 teams in college football. They seem like one of those teams that can beat Alabama. In fact, Ohio State did lose a double-digit game in 2014, early in the year, and they did beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. In that same year, they won the national championship. So I think anything's possible for them. And I think Ohio State gets the win here. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be a high defensive battle. But I see Ohio State winning this game. Penn State's defense really has to rise up on the occasion. They've got to make sure Saquon Barkley gets involved. If you're Ohio State, you got to contain Saquon Barkley. Contain the Heisman favorite right now. Best player in college football right now. I feel like this is a must-win game for Ohio State more than it is Penn State. So I feel like if Penn State loses this game, depending on how close it is, I think Penn State can still sneak in the college football playoff. Although we have the argument of conference champions. But we're going to talk about that when we get to it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to that moment. But right now, we just got to focus on this week. I think Ohio State wins here. I just think if Ohio State wins convincingly, they could go all the way up to maybe number 3. I could see that. But I think Ohio State wins really close. I'm going to say it's going to be a defensive battle. I'm going to say 20-17 Ohio State wins. Although I could see Ohio State maybe winning by more than that. I could maybe see him winning by 14. Because Ohio State's got one of the most underrated defenses in college football. Probably the most talented defense, not only in the Big Ten, but in college football altogether. So I see Ohio State win this game, but the question is how much. I'm going to say at least right now at this point, 2017. But I could see Ohio State also winning this game by maybe 14, maybe even more than 14. And now for some bonus picks. I've got number 17 South Florida beating Houston and number 15 Washington State against Arizona. So those are my picks this week. Comment your picks down below. Also like and subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends and family. Also, let's get me to 1,000 subscribers. I believe we're 12 subscribers away at this moment. So let's get me to 1,000. I will see you next time. Have a good day, everyone.